many of you have cherished childhood memories, moments that shaped you in a beautiful ways, by show of hands? All right. And how many of you have painful childhood experiences, memories that still influence you today? By show of hands. All right? Both the good and the bad shape who we become. They inform our decisions, the partners we choose, how we show up for others, the careers we pursue, and how we navigate the world. Yet, childhood experiences and their lasting effects are often underestimated. We advocate for women's rights, we advocate for Blacks' rights, but I'm here today to talk about the rights of children, of Black children. Children's right beyond food, clothing, and shelter, but the right to be happy, the right to feel loved, supported, and protected. Why does this matter? Can I have the presentation, please? 60% of adults, next slide, report experience abuse or other difficulty family circumstance during childhood. 26% of children will witness or experience a traumatic event by the age of 4. 26% of children will witness or experience, young children exposed to 5 or more significant adverse experiences in the first 3 years of childhood face 76% likelihood 1 or more delays in language, emotional, and brain development. Based on these numbers, it matters. You're probably wondering why this is important. And what does this have to do with a few good warriors? I've always been fascinated by the power of words. As we have heard so far, a few good warriors is the theme. But what does that truly mean? What sets a warrior apart from a fighter? And more important, what are they fighting for? A fighter is someone who struggles, resists, perseveres. They have courage, determination, and the will to fight. But a warrior is something more, as we have heard thus far. A warrior isn't just defined by their battles, it's an identity, a way of being. A warrior is disciplined, focused, and relentless, not for selfish gain, but the protection and the upliftment of others. Today I ask you, would you be a fighter or would you be a warrior for Black children? Don't answer yet. I'm going to highlight a few good warriors. Presentation. Janie Porter Barrett. She was born in Athens, Georgia, and would go on to be one of the most influential leaders in Virginia for social reform and child welfare. Janie attended the Hampton Normal Agriculture Institute and one of the first vocational schools for freed Black Americans that is known today as Hampton University. After a brief time teaching in Georgia, she returned to Hampton alongside her husband. She worked to unite the local African American community through neighborhood clubs and classes, focused on bettering her community. During this time, Janie witnessed the realities of struggling and orphaned Black youth who were often condemned as delinquents and thrown in jail. Through fierce dedication, communal fundraising, and a drive to see better futures for these children, particularly young Black girls, she founded the Virginia Industrial School for Colored Girls in 1915. The school took in at-risk Black girls and taught them skills so they could become successful domestic and farm workers. Janie was also a leader in the Richmond Urban League as well as the National Association of Colored Women, and even took part in the 1930s White House Conference on Child Health and Protection. Nearly at the same time, at a different side of town, there was another lady getting involved with child advocacy, Next slide. Frederica Douglass Sprague Perry. She had a long name, just like mine. She was the granddaughter of legendary abolitionist Frederick Douglass and was born in upstate New York in 1872. She attended the Mechanics Institute in Rochester, New York, and eventually moved to Jefferson City, Missouri, where she began teaching at Lincoln University in 1912. Frederica married Dr. John E. Perry, founder of the Whitley Providence Hospital, moved to Kansas City, and helped run the first private hospital in the United States for Black people. It was here that Frederica also witnessed the harsh treatment of dependent Black children who were often placed in state institutions in the same injustices that Janie witnessed in Virginia. Taking the same strategic and fundraising approach as Porter, Frederica opened the Colored Big Sister Home for Girls in 1934. This organization inspired other charitable organizations to create a similar home for white children. 10 years later, the home closed as Missouri created its own children welfare service. By calling attention to the needs of Black foster children, Frederica inspired state-sponsored child welfare that included all children. Both Janie and Frederica saw the need and became warriors for the children. And if they were here today, I will make them my friends. I believe we all can have some of Janie and Frederica's spirit within us. Before we turn a blind eye to the suffering of others, we must understand the impacts of trauma. Trauma exists on a spectrum. We often think of childhood trauma in extreme cases: sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, but trauma can also be more subtle. For example, it can be the pressures to be perfect because your parents are elders in the church. It can be growing up with a mother struggling with depression after a divorce. I once spoke with my 80-year-old uncle, and he told me he stopped believing in God when he was a child because his parents divorced, his mother left, and she never returned. He prayed and prayed for her to come back, but she never did. He believed God ignored him. That moment shaped his entire life. This is childhood trauma. And if I had an hour, I can give you countless of stories that people have shared with me, but I think you got the point. We often think trauma has to be extreme, but it doesn't. Small wounds get buried in a child's subconscious, shaping their view of the world in ways we never realize. Discipline without love is trauma. Tough love is not love. Imagine if God withheld from us when we were wrong. I don't recall any stories in the Bible where Jesus walking around earth giving tough love. The two words just don't belong together. Silent treatment is trauma. It leaves a child feeling dehumanized, unworthy, and unloved. Imagine if Jesus gave us silent treatment. What would that say about our worth? Every human being wants to be seen and heard, especially children. Let's not ignore them. Let's show them every day that they are worthy of love. Next slide. The human spirit is resilient. We are stronger than we think. As Sister Valina told her story, as my other sisters told their stories, but we can thrive to our greatest potential with a healed heart. Let God heal you. The starting point is understanding the trauma within us. Once we examine and recognize when trauma is present in ourselves, we can lift our heads out of the water and begin noticing the trauma we and others are swimming in. It's everywhere. Sometimes we have to look in the mirror. Next slide. I want you to look at this picture, the picture with the mirror. I want you to look at this picture. I see pain. I see abandonment, low self-esteem, attachment issues. Facing the unhealed version of ourselves is not about placing blame. Our parents, like us, were limited people working with limited resources and falling short of perfection. To become the best version of ourselves, we must first confront and heal the wounds we carry so we no longer pass our pain on to others. God can open your eyes to see the truth. But the good news is, He will never leave you to face it alone. He is the balm of Gilead, our source of healing and restoration. We are not limited, but to walk in freedom, we must allow God to heal us. This means addressing the blind spots formed by our own childhood wounds, the very wounds that have led us to believe that the world is unsafe. We gotta be intentional. We gotta identify our triggers. We gotta find help. Ask for help. We have to pray. And we have to find ways to cope. Let's create a new healed generation of Black children. Children who don't have to carry the burdens we did. Challenges in lives are inevitable. We're not gonna escape challenges. But when a child grows up with a whole and an unbroken mind, they can overcome anything and become warriors in their own right. We don't always know who is carrying trauma, but we can start today by ensuring we don't break our children's hearts. Let's raise children who will become healthy, whole, and resilient adults. Let's break generational trauma. This is my charge to you. You can be a warrior for all children. First, let's heal ourselves and give all children the right to a childhood filled with love and support. And as I close, I'm going to share a personal story. I won't be very long because I know you guys are probably tired. Thursday morning, I woke up and something felt off. I've never felt this feeling before. It was a little weird. So I said, well, maybe something bad is going to happen. So I texted my son, how are you? Everything okay? Of course, he didn't text me back, so I kept texting him all day. I called my friends, and I was like, is everything okay? Is everybody okay? Something just felt off. And I told my husband, it's like, something felt off. And he was like, what do you mean? He didn't really understand what I meant, but he said, let's pray. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. That's a good one. And then Friday morning, I woke up and I said, you know why you're off? Because you're going to speak. You're going to tell the people the truth. You're going to share something that someone needs to hear. This is a very subject very dear to my heart because it's in all of us. We're in a church and we live in this protective bubble, but there are people out there that had crack-addicted parents. You have child molesting fathers. And I see they show up for work and they try to be brave, but they fight alone because they don't know the hope. And I wake up every day and I say, God, I'm going to be a warrior. And I fight every day to be a butterfly, to share hope, to share joy. Because I know what darkness looks like. I know what it feels like. But I also know that there is light and there is hope. And most importantly, I know that there is love because God is love. And He loves you with an everlasting love. And that I know for sure. Thank you.